right, this might be one of the shortest episodes in the history of the podcast. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but back when I first started the podcast, we're talking, I think this was January 2021, because I started the podcast October 2020. I made an episode that was I titled it Mini Episode, What Should Happen Today in the 2021 College Football Playoff. And that episode, sorry, that was loud. That was me starting. I was clicking on the episode to see the exact date, and then it automatically played. Oh, never mind. It was still 2020. It was December 20th, 2020. So I called it a mini episode, and it was only 12 minutes long. And I really did away with the mini episodes because I was like, you know what? If I record a pod that's 5 minutes long, that's still an episode because it's still part of the pod. So I kind of did away with that thought process. Probably had shorter episodes than 12 minutes that I counted as full episodes because I don't think I've never went back to saying, oh, this is a mini episode. Yeah, because my April Fool's pods are usually less than 10 minutes. And, yeah. Yeah, that was 7 minutes, that last April Fool's pod for this year. So, anyways, you read the title of the video. As far as anything else we want to talk about, Caitlin Clark made her debut last night, had 20 points, 10 turnovers, but they were guarding her 90 feet. So I think Caitlin Clark's going to have immense success in the WNBA. Happy to see that they're streaming the games on Disney+. They have a lot of games on ESPN2 that they're airing. Like, the popularity is really going to grow, and I'm really excited for the WNBA. And I'm going to be watching it as I watched some last night, and I'm very excited for the season. As far as predictions go, I gotta admit, I gotta watch this season and get my feet underneath me before I start making predictions. But I obviously do think Caitlin Clark's going to be really good. As far as the NBA, we talked last pod about how this Nuggets T-Wolves is probably the real finals. Now, I said I still had the Nuggets winning. Even when they were down 2-0, I was like, they could still win it, and they've won the last 3 games. So now the Nuggets are up 3-2. I would be very surprised if it doesn't go 7, but Jokic was just playing on an insane level last night. People are starting to say, all the people that were hating on Jokic are now like, oh, wait, the gap between him and the second best player is really big. Yeah, it is. Jokic is the man. Like, he is, as much as I like Giannis, and Giannis is the second best player in the NBA, the gap between him and Jokic it gets wider, it feels, every playoffs because Jokic is just on another level. I do think we're living in the Jokic era. I do believe they're going to win the title this year and go back-to-back. And I think there's a real chance for a three-peat. And I think it's Anthony Edwards' kind of rite of passage to being that guy is to defeat the Nuggets in the playoffs at some point. So, but that's really all I had to say on sports. The NFL schedule is going to be released soon. But let's get into the actual topic of this podcast, in which last night at about 11:15, I started the movie Heat. Heat is a 1995 crime flick directed by Michael Mann. Came out, it was a pretty big success. I think it made about 180 at the box office. It was a December release, which I always think is odd when they do a December release for like an R-rated crime flick, or really R-rated anything, like something a little more adult. Because I'm like, really? I granted, I don't know what adults do in like general, I guess. Most people I hang out with aren't full-grown adults. They're like wannabe adults, like they're like early 20s or late teens. So I don't really know. Like I just know my parents wouldn't go see a movie in December. There's a lot better chance they go see one randomly in like March, or like my parents don't even go to summer movies. So I don't even know what the answer would be here. I don't know. I just always think a December release is usually like a family movie or like a crowd pleaser that anybody can go see, like a Star Wars, right? Something like that. I just think it's a bit of an odd choice to release in December. No, maybe it's just me. Anyways, it came out with 187 million. It was gross worldwide. It came out 95, 2 hours and 50 minutes. So I knew I was in for a crime epic. The cast is pretty stacked. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, Jon Voight, Tom Sizemore. I don't know if I've actually seen him in anything else, but he looked familiar. I haven't seen Amy Brenneman or Diane Venora, if I can remember, but I have seen Ashley Judd and things before, usually in like movies from when I was younger, because she was in Dolphin Tale. which I watched when I was younger, both the first and second one. And she was in another like more kids movie that I saw when I was younger. Tooth Fairy. Yeah, Tooth Fairy with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Dennis Haysbert was in it. He's the guy. He's the Allstate Are You in Good Hands guy. I recognized him. He was also in 24. He was the president, and he's good. Ted Levine's in it, and I've seen Ted Levine in something, and I can't remember what it was. Natalie Portman is very young in this. I wonder if this was before or after Leon the Professional. I think it's a little bit before. But young Natalie Portman, and then William, I think it's Fichtner. Either way, I recognized him because he's in The Dark Knight, which I'm pretty sure Nolan is tipping the cap to Heat by having him in it. Like, I think he's like being like, yeah, this is a Heat reference when he has Fichtner in The Dark Knight. But he's also been in other movies I've seen. Like, he's in The Longest Yard, the Sandler one. I've never watched the Burt Reynolds one. I haven't seen Black Hawk Down. I don't really have a lot of interest. Not a huge. Oh, he's in the Ninja Turtles, the Bayverse, TMNT. But yeah, a lot of actors and actresses I knew in this film, like a ton of people. I was like, I'm not even sure if I've like watched a movie of you, but I've seen you somewhere. Jon Voight was wearing a kind of a terrible wig. So I didn't recognize Voight at first though. I was like, what? That's Jon Voight? So that was funny. It took me a minute to recognize who it was. But anyways, the reason I'm recording a pod about this, and I think I'm going to title it something like Heat Was Just Fine or something like that, is that this movie has been hyped on a level that is borderline unseen for me. A lot of movies that I hype up for myself, whereas this movie has been hyped up a lot for me. So I'm going to take you guys back quick. This is, I just got to warn everybody, this might be the least listened to podcast in years because I'm warning everybody. This is like basically everything we're talking about sports I did within the first 3 minutes. Like we're done talking about sports the rest of the pod. This is going to be mostly me rambling about movies. So if you enjoyed that episode where I went on for like 40 minutes about the Disney movies I watched in order in my life, like which ones I watched at a young age, which one I watched as I got older, et cetera, et cetera. You might enjoy this, but if I'm just warning you, this is what this is going to be. This is just going to, I'm really doing this, I think, for my own personal reasons. I finished the movie and I was like, I kind of want to talk about this on the pod. And I'm not even sure what I had to say, but I just knew I had something to say. So I was like, all right, let's go record. So I just went down here and recorded. Like, this is literally 5 minutes off turning the movie off. So, okay. Let's keep it rolling. Anyways, I'm going to take you guys back to June 2022. First time I ever watched Django Unchained. It was that or it was May 2022, and I don't feel like going to my notes to look. But anyways, that movie was hyped up on an insane level because I had seen clips of it before, and I just thought it looked cool. And I had watched Karsten Rundquist rank Tarantino films. That was the first time I was like, oh, maybe I should try those. Maybe I would like that. And I watched Jamie Foxx doing an impression of Quentin Tarantino because that interview was hilarious. And I saw a couple clips of the movie, and I was like, this looks really interesting. This looks really fun. This looks really action-packed, and I really, really like the energy. Big Jamie Foxx guy, would see it. I watched it, absolutely loved it. It won Best Movie of the Year for 2022. About 2 weeks later, I watched Pulp Fiction. Absolutely love it. About 2 weeks after that, watching Inglourious Basterds. Not as much as I like the other two, but still really good. Really loved it. One of my best friend's favorite Tarantino movies. It's funny because I watched Inglourious Basterds with two friends of mine. And the one friend, his favorite Tarantino movie is Pulp Fiction, and the other friend is Inglourious Basterds. So like the first three Tarantino movies I watched, two of my friends liked the other one. I just thought it was interesting. We each liked a separate one. I think Tarantino is a very strong director that way, where I think Nolan's like that too, where you can be a Nolan guy. Like I could pull in 5 people, like 5 friends of mine that are all big, or not even friends of mine, just anybody, right? 5 people that consider themselves big Christopher Nolan fans, and we might all have completely different favorite movies. Now, the guy who's right is the one who says Tenet. But, I I do really like Tenet, and I'm glad it had like a resurgence online of people talking about it. It is good. But anyways, I need to do a Tenet rewatch soon. That movie I hyped up to an insane degree. So there's certain movies that I just get from the trailers and the clips, and I just love the aesthetic, and I hype it up in my mind to this insane level. Dune Part 2 was like that. I hyped it up in my mind that it was just going to be incredible. Like, I just wanted it to be amazing. And it was. It really was. But I think this is a dangerous thing by me. Because sometimes when I go into a movie with pretty low expectations, I'm like, I don't really think I'm going to like this. Whatever. Because the thing is, a lot of times when I'm hyping things up, it's not to a quality degree as much as I'm going to like it degree. Challengers, I was like, this will probably be pretty good, but I don't really think it's going to be for me. Then I really loved Challengers. I thought it was excellent, and I think that is always more fun for me. That's not true. I take that back. The best thing is when the movie I really like, I hyped up to myself, and it hits my expectation or surpasses them. That's always great. Or when I have kind of low expectations, and I really like it. But granted, what a shocker. I like it when I go to a movie and enjoy it. So I'm not really saying much by pointing that out. But like Beverly Hills Cop, I didn't actually hype up to an insane degree. I just remember one night my parents watched it. They had recorded it, and my dad was like, "Hey, you should watch that at some point." And about a year or two later, we were sitting around, and my mom was like, "Oh, you've never seen that? You should watch it." I watched it, and I loved it. And then it was one of those that kind of aged, because at first, in a good way, like it just got better and better to me. Because when I first watched it, I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. I really liked that. That's a really funny movie. And then I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was just like, man, I really love it. And now possibly my favorite movie of all time. Like, if we're being genuinely honest, it probably is. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark puts up a great fight, and so do the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans. But it's and the Lego Movie. That's like really the top four. But it's tough. Like, I mean, if you really put a gun to my head, said you have to pick a favorite movie, I would say Beverly Hills Cop. I'm just being honest. But like Terminator, I love Terminator, and Terminator was not hyped up to an insane degree. My mom was just like, I really like Terminator, we should watch it. And I was like, oh, I've always thought I probably should, so let's do it. Then I really liked it. So it's a dangerous game to play when I hype things up incredibly. The new Superman movie with David Corenswet. That might be the most hyped up movie in my mind. Goodness, since possibly ever. Because the thing is with Infinity War and Endgame is that I had a concept of what I was getting. So I was super excited, don't get me wrong. But I had a concept of what it was going to be. Whereas with the Superman movie, I just have the most wild expectations because I've already made the movie in my head 40 times, which is problematic. I understand that, but I'm really excited for it. And so I think, oh, what if they did this? What if they did that? What would I do? What could they do? And what would I want to see? How do I want Superman portrayed? What comics should they pull themes from? And that's a dangerous game to play. But when it works out, it's amazing. Because the Batman, I hyped up to an insane degree in my mind. And it actually topped what I had an idea was. Because I was afraid that the Batman was going to be a little too violent and detective-y and dark and gritty, that it wasn't going to work for me. And I was going to be like, man, I kind of miss the fun Batman element. And it somehow struck the balance so perfectly. It gave me a Batman movie that I didn't realize I wanted so bad, which was like crime noir Batman movie. And I didn't realize I needed that badly until it came out. And so I think that's the perfect way to have it, is when you hype it up in your mind as one thing, and then it gives you something you didn't even know you wanted, and it's actually better than what you originally wanted. Because now in my mind, I already know what I want from the DCU Batman. I want the blue suit with a more fantastical, over-the-top Batman with the Bat family. And I really hope it does that. Now, granted, where a lot of people get into issues online, and I got to try to stop myself from, is if the DCU Batman isn't that, I can't resent it for not being exactly what I wanted, because it could still be something really good, and I could still like it. So that's always important, is keeping an open mind. This is a really long-winded way to talk about Heat. Goodness. That's what I said. This might have like 5 views, but it's okay. I understand if like the click off rate is like the first 2 minutes, everybody's like, okay, I'm not listening to the rest of this. Anyways, so let's talk about Heat. I am a big crime fiction guy. I think it's been more of a recent effect. I watched Jackie Brown, greatly enjoyed it. Started reading Elmore Leonard novels, really fell in love with those. I really like, I guess that's not too much of a recent effect because I always really liked gangster movies. I like The Untouchables. I like Godfather. Never watched Goodfellas, I know. Never watched Casino. I do need to get around to those at some point. And The Irishman. The Scorsese trilogy of crime films I have not seen. But what I really, True Detective season 1 is like one of the best seasons of television of all time. I love that show. My problem is, though, I don't think I would classify Burn Notice. I think I actually would classify Burn Notice because Burn Notice to me feels like an Elmer Leonard novel, which I know I should watch Justified at some point. I will, but Burn Notice to me feels incredibly similar vibes-wise to an Elmer Leonard novel because it's got that fun level to it. And that's the thing I really like about the Elmer Leonard novels is I really enjoy when the crime has a little bit of hokey humanity to it. I don't know how to describe it, but when the bad guys are kind of dumb, like they're greasy gangsters and they always think they're going to outsmart the detective, but the detective's not going to be outsmarted. Come on. I like when it is a little softer, I would say. I don't really know how to describe that. I guess the best way to describe it is my grandmother reads a lot of books, and she reads these crime novels. I can't tell you what they're called, but she reads a lot of crime novels. And she was telling about this one, and it's pretty intense crime. Like, he's taken down serial killers. He's taken down these big gangsters that do horrible things, etc., etc. But she also really enjoys the Elmore Leonard novels I recommended. And we were talking, I was like, I don't know if I'd ever read those other things you read because I just really enjoy an Elmer Leonard novel. Like Maximum Bob has one character who's just like a total psycho bad guy. And that's really his only character like that. Like everybody else is always just kind of like, even in Pronto, which is a great Elmer Leonard novel. There's an Italian guy who's like he's pretty like a pretty straightforward gangster. Like he has no problem killing people. But it's like he's kind of got the hots for this woman, and he's always trying to impress her a little bit, and he's a little too cocky. He's overconfident in his abilities. Like they're always kind of sleazy. Like they're never like psycho monsters, right? There's only one Elmore Leonard book, like I said, Maximum Bob. There's like one psycho monster character, and even then, it's relatively toned down compared to some movies and books and TV shows. So I think it's why I enjoy Jackie Brown, is because Jackie Brown is an Elmore Leonard adaptation. I really should read Rum Punch at some point, the book it's based off of. But it's got that fun vibe. Godfather, I think, even has a bit of that because you're from their perspective. This is why I like Godfather 1 more than 2. 1 is the significantly more fun one. I say fun, but it's, it's pretty intense. I mean, when James Caan gets shot up, that's an intense scene. But there's still that reverence where they feel like a family. Like there is something to it, right? Like they have dark. Don't worry, they're bad people. They have dark sides, but they're not like psychotic monsters. And I think in Godfather Part 2, we start to shift to Michael being a borderline psychotic monster. I think that's why maybe Taxi Driver doesn't work for me. I think Taxi Driver is an incredibly interesting character study, but me personally, I don't really care to watch more intense Catcher in the Rye. I mean, I watched Taxi Driver. If I was at a friend's house, he's like, hey, I really want to watch Taxi Driver. I really want to watch it. I wouldn't be like, no, I can't. But, like, I don't love it. You're like, Ryan, you don't like psychotic monsters, but you enjoy Wolf of Wall Street. Wolf of Wall Street is a movie that I don't really take that seriously because I think when you don't, it becomes a fun, crazy movie that you're like, what the hell is going on? And if you look at it as this dark character study of this broken man, that's less of a fun movie. And I think I'm saying, to me, Wolf of Wall Street is kind of like watching like fail videos on America's Funniest Home Videos, where it's like, the people in it probably aren't the best or the brightest, but there's something entertaining about watching it all unfold, right? That's, to me, how I watch Wolf of Wall Street, right? Heat is very interesting because Heat, as I already introduced the film itself, but the director's Michael Mann. The only Michael Mann film I have ever watched is I started Miami Vice, like the 2006 one with Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx, on a plane on a flight to Europe. And I really had to pee, and I was uncomfortable in my seat. And I got like 40 minutes in, and I was like, I just am not feeling this. I'm really not feeling this movie right now. So then I just watched When Harry Met Sally. Like, it was just, I was just not feeling the 2006 Miami Vice. Maybe I'll watch it at some other point. But I think I was literally like almost halfway through it. I think I might have been an hour in. Like, I was decent ways through it. And I was like, I'm not feeling this at all. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer. This is Pacino and De Niro meeting back up since Godfather Part 2. They get to face off because Pacino plays Vincent Hanna, who is a police lieutenant who is trying to take down Robert De Niro's crew of bank robbers, in which Val Kilmer is Chris, who is a part of the bank robbers, and De Niro is Neil, I think Macaulay is the last name. Yeah. Kilmer, at first when I watched the movie, okay, quick thing. The reason this movie is so hyped up to me is because I think I've talked about it before on the podcast. I'm a big Bill Simmons fan. He was like the first podcast I remember started regularly listening to when I was younger. I've bought The Big Book of Basketball. I would recommend that to anybody who enjoys NBA or NBA history. The Big Bill Simmons Book of Basketball is excellent. I have also bought Now I Can Die in Peace, his book about the Red Sox. I have not read it yet, though, I will admit. But the Bill Simmons Book of Basketball is excellent. He loves Heat. I now have 4 podcasts that he has talked about Heat on, because they have a show called The Rewatchables, which I would say is the best movie podcast. They rewatch movies, and Heat they have done on there 3 times. There is no other movie they've done more than twice. There's only I think probably maybe 6 movies they've done twice. Like, hardly any movies they do twice. And they've done Heat 3 times. And one time on his own show, before they had the Rewatchables, he did a podcast just talking about Heat for the 20th anniversary. And when they did that podcast, that was how they started getting the ideas to create the Rewatchable show, was because of that podcast. He randomly did it on his Bill Simmons podcast. So he references it all the time. In his latest episode, he was comparing the Timberwolves to the cast of Heat, and he was saying that Karl Anthony Towns needs to stop seeing himself as De Niro and try to be Sizemore. And at that point, I was like, okay, I just need to watch this freaking movie, because it's so talked about on all his stuff, and it's all over the internet now. Like, it's become, I don't know whether it's in the last 10 years, but it just feels like it's a very well-known flick. And the book just came out 2 years ago, in which Michael Mann wrote a novel called Heat 2. He worked with, I forget her name, but a woman helped him write it. I want to give her credit too, so give me a sec. Meg Gardner. Gardenier? It's Gardner, but there's an I before. It's Gardiner? I don't know. Maybe it's just Gardner and you ignore the I, because it's Gardiner. But yes, Heat 2. He wrote a book about his potential sequel, and then he got it greenlit. And the reason he wrote the book first is because it's kind of a big vision, because it's both a prequel and a sequel, as it follows the characters before the events of Heat and then the characters after the events of Heat. So it's kind of a massive project. And I don't know why he wrote the book before the movie. I guess he probably couldn't get the movie approved. Like, everybody was like, that's crazy, we're not doing that. And then when the book was a #1 New York Times bestseller, people were like, oh, we should make this movie. Rumor is Adam Driver and Austin Butler will be in it. Austin Butler playing Val Kilmer's character, potentially. Perfect casting. You take, it's literally old hotness and now new hotness. Like, Val Kilmer, I think my mom still has a crush on, and obviously he's a massive movie star. And then you got Austin Butler, who's, I know a lot of people have a crush on. I made a joke on my YouTube channel, Ryan Klinger. I made like a skit saying he was my celebrity lookalike. Except I didn't see it, is what I said in that. I said I looked more like Michael B. Jordan. But anyways, I think Austin Butler could really kill it. And then Driver would apparently be Pacino's character, which would be interesting. I could see it, but I think Butler's Kilmer's was really the one. I was like, oh, that's money. Pacino apparently wants Chalamet to be him, though. I see Driver a little more. I think Driver makes a little more sense, but I went to this movie with very high expectations. I was expecting it to be, I think, on the level. I would say, like, if they're like, Ryan, what's your favorite crime movie? Beverly Hills Cop is not a crime movie. I just got to outline that quick. Definitely not a crime movie. I would say Jackie Brown and Reservoir Dogs are definitely up there. I don't really count Pulp Fiction as a crime movie. I don't really know what Pulp Fiction even is. Maybe it is a crime movie. I guess all my favorite crime movies are Tarantino movies. Yeah, I don't. Like, I'm thinking about it. I don't have another. Like, I mean, Untouchables and Godfather I really like too. Is that really it from me? I feel like Seven is a thriller. I don't feel like Seven is a crime flick. I think there's something of the crime movie. It's got to be sexy, right? Like, the crime, you got to be like, oh man, they're gonna pull this off. To me, that's like when it's a crime movie. When it's like, oh my gosh, this guy's a monster. That is not a crime movie. That's Seven. Like, that's not not a crime flick. Fight Club is not a crime flick. I think Fight Club is, I don't even know what you'd classify Fight Club as either. I don't think he's a monster, but it's not a crime flick. Because there's not that sexiness. You're not like, oh man, they're going to pull this off. Ocean's 11, it's a crime flick. But with Heat, I watched it all. Last night I watched about an hour 45 of it. This morning woke up, watched the last hour. I think the last hour is the strongest part of the film. Because that's when the main heist happens and that's when everything comes together. I think it's incredibly well written when it comes to the plot. I'd say there's some parts in the dialogue I'm like, what the hell are we doing? But I really liked. It felt like a grand sweeping epic in which you would follow these characters and things that don't seem connected at first that then an hour later all come together to create this like great crescendo. And I think that is why it's had this big resurgence of popularity, because people really appreciate that coming together of the film, how it all meets up to create this massive crescendo, all these little plot points. Like, everything is wrapped up in a nice bow. And I think it's really impressive. And I think that is part of the reason it sticks with people so much. And I think it was good. It was really good. I just don't think it's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think I wanted to record this to kind of talk out my feelings why that is. First off, I do think I'm getting a little more picky when it comes to Hall of Fame, because the more movies you watch, the more picky you get, because you got more to compare it to, right? It's like when you first... I don't even know what the example would be. It's kind of like the first time you drank a pop, you probably liked it, right? It was sweet. It was different. Well, now you've probably had 60 different pops in your life, all these different flavors. Coke, Dr. Pepper, Cherry Coke, Cherry Pepsi. Now you know what you like, right? You're a little more picky if you try something new and you go, oh, it reminds me of, and you say something. You're like, but it's not as good. Or it's better, right? You've got more to compare it to. You got more of a base. And I think I'm getting a little more picky. But on top of that, I didn't really know exactly what was going to go on in this film. I thought originally that Pacino was the cop and he was after De Niro, and Kilmer was a cop with Pacino. I didn't realize Kilmer was a criminal with De Niro. So that was weird, because when I started the movie, I just had this thought in my head of what it was going to be, and then I was like, oh, Kilmer is real. Like, this is the De Niro Pacino movie. Kilmer is kind of a bit too big for the role he plays. Like, I think cast is stacked, though, right? But Kilmer was a big deal in 95. Kilmer is a big deal. It's not like they got, it's not like, oh, he really popped. It's not like, he popped off after this. Like, no, he was a big deal, and they got him to just be he's definitely not the third lead. He is a supporting character. Now, granted, he is the biggest supporting character in the film. Like, it is, I would say, it's Pacino, De Niro, or like tied for top, then Kilmer. I think those are your characters. He's not on the level of Pacino and De Niro. He just does not have that level. I don't think there's a single scene where it's just him. Whereas we get multiple scenes where it is just Pacino by himself, and you're, drawing it, or he's with characters that really don't matter that much, right? Where you're basically following the film from his perspective. You get multiple scenes from De Niro's perspective. You don't get a lot from Kilmer. There's only I guess there's a couple scenes of his wife. That's it. Read some criticisms online that the characters, all the female characters, aren't very fleshed out, and I would say that's definitely true. There definitely could have been more depth there. But I would also say I just think that's not the movie Michael Mann cared to tell. I think he wanted this to be a crime epic following these two men who are obsessed with what they do, and because of that, they can have nothing else in life. And the most interesting criticism I read of this online, because after I finished the movie, for about 5 minutes, I looked at these different criticisms, and I was like, all right, screw this. I just want to record my own pod. The most interesting way to look at the characters that Pacino and De Niro play is when you look at Kilmer's character. And I think it'll be very interesting to see how Heat 2 turns out, because Kilmer's character is the juxtaposition to those two. And I don't want to spoil the movie. I'm really trying to not spoil the film on purpose, because I think it's definitely a movie people should watch. I think is quite good. I think it's a very easily recommendable film. I understand why it's popular, because it's very intense, but it's an entertaining movie. There's really no breaks. It's all gas, no breaks, baby, as my buddy Dylan always says. So I understand why it's had this massive boost in popularity. As far as why it didn't work for me, I found myself completely drawn into De Niro's character, and I liked him, and I wanted him to get out of everything, and I wanted him to basically just own the movie. And then we would cut to Pacino's character, which doesn't really work for me. I understand part of the charm of the film, and part of the reason Bill Simmons loves it so much is because of the overacting from Pacino and the over-the-top nature that he plays the character. It just took me out of the movie. You got this intense crime flick, and then you got him bringing a whack-ass performance. It was like the over-the-top performance I would see in True Romance. This is a better movie than True Romance. I want to state that. I think True Romance is got some highs and lows. This movie's pretty consistent. But it's a wild performance from Pacino, and I couldn't get into his character because De Niro is playing such a subdued and dialed in performance. And then you got Pacino, who's just off the walls. And it just doesn't work for me. It like genuinely, like I think if Pacino reeled it back and wasn't so crazy, I think the movie would probably be less popular. I think it'd probably be talked about less. Because I think part of the fascination is by how weird that performance is. I think he does provide some entertainment to the film. I'm not going to lie. But it just doesn't work for me. I was just like, the first time when he does the, give me all you got, give me all you got, I was like, what are we doing? I knew that was coming in the movie. I knew he was going to do the give me all you got thing that they talk about for overacting on Bill Simmons' podcast. But I'm saying, in the context of the movie, it doesn't even make any sense. And the famous line that Tom Sizemore says, the action is the juice for me. Maybe it's just because I've heard the line so much, but I was like, it felt like something they'd say on like Suits, where it's like, it's not the way people talk. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too critical. I just thought it was weird. And the whole overacting on the Pacino's character, and he's like, she's got a great ass. That whole thing. It's also, in the context of the movie, it doesn't even make sense. Like, some of the famous bits from the movie, part of the reason they're famous, I think, is because they don't really make sense in the context of the film. And I understand that's part of some of the charm, but it just didn't work for me. I was like, what the hell are we doing? So, yeah, Pacino, I honestly need to see Pacino in another movie now. Like, I need to watch a Pacino movie where he isn't acting over the top crazy. Because I was like, was he just coked up the entire time they were filming this? Is that what's going on? Like, what the hell was wrong with him? Such an odd performance. De Niro killed it, though. I really liked the way he portrayed Neil. And maybe that's part of it, is that those characters mirror each other. You get the one who's over top, the one that's subdued. But if I don't know. Maybe this is an odd criticism. But genuinely, the movie didn't work for me. Because the Kilmer character at first, like, I don't really care about him that much. And then by the end of the film, I was like, no, wait, he was really interesting. I liked him. And then De Niro's character, Neil, I loved following him. He was incredibly interesting. And I think the movie works because you're seeing it from both sides. You're seeing it from Pacino's side of the police and De Niro's side with the crime group, the crew. But the Pacino thing just missed the mark for me. And it brought down the film as a whole. And I was not disappointed in the movie. I want to say that. It was basically exactly what I expected it to be. In my mind, I had hyped it up to be a really great crime epic that I was really going to like. And I think it's a really great crime epic that I didn't like as much as I wanted to. That's pretty much the movie. And that's fine. You know? It's, if someone I was at a friend's house and like, let's watch Heat, I'd be like, hell yeah. It's a fun movie. I don't know if it's fun. It's an entertaining movie. It's an intense flick. It's entertaining. Also, just want a quick state, and this is just personal preference. Any movie that's going to have anybody that's like kills anybody in a sexual context, it's going to be a massive uphill battle for that movie to get into the Hall of Fame. Because that just makes me incredibly uncomfortable. It just always does. Which I understand. It's a part of plots, right? I get that. It's a real thing that goes on. But it's just such a terrible thing that happens that it just really bothers me when it's an I'm just like, I don't even like thinking about that. That's terrible. That goes on. So, he does have a character who does that. And I understand it makes sense in the context of the film. Don't get me wrong. But it's always an uphill battle for a movie to get in the Hall of Fame. Like, I debated not putting Seven in the Hall of Fame just because of the lust murder. It's like such an uncomfortable scene to me that it almost ruins me enjoying the movie. That close. True Detective, bit of the same way. Massive uphill battle for True Detective. But True Detective, there is no TV Hall of Fame, so it doesn't matter. But if you found this interesting, I would say you should watch Heat and form your own opinion and see what you think. I will probably watch it again at some point. But as far as it, I think maybe I need to do a Jackie Brown rewatch. But like in my mind, I think Jackie Brown's better in this. And maybe it's just I want something different out of a crime film. And that's fine. It's not a bad movie. Like I said, it was pretty much what I thought it would be, except I just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. So. All right. Well, I believe that's all I had to say. If you made it this far, hopefully I gave a decent review. I didn't give hardly any of the plot away. At least I tried not to. Okay, that's it from me. I'll definitely check it out, though. It's obviously a good movie. Just, I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. All right. See you all in the next one. Bye-bye.